you put so much time and effort into building a product and into launching a product. Part of a big part of our topic today is like, why do product launches succeed or fail? I mean, all that effort, all that intuition about customers and goals in the market and the marketing and everything, and then sometimes they just don't work. And so I think to set up this conversation, we're going to talk about product launches. But what we did was actually ran another user testing study and collected a highlight reel of some product leaders talking to us about why product launches sometimes fail. So let's take a moment here and hear what they had to say.
In your experience, what are the top reasons product launches fail? Yes. So if a support team is not aware that there's a new product launch that's happening, or sales don't know what they're selling or don't understand what they're selling, customers are not primed to know that this is coming, that the development team is not available for any hypercare or supporting the support team, this is where product launches will fail.
And if people don't have the key messages, the storytelling, the value, and something else, and some process that gets them bought into it and excited about it and willing to try it, versus falling back to their old habits and just thinking, oh, my old habits are easier, it's dead. And I've had that happen quite a few times. Like, that's been a pretty solid lesson.
I think going back, people not holding up their end of the bargain. So if they have tasks assigned to them not getting their tasks done in time, or they underestimated how much it's going to take for them to do, or what their capacity is going to be. So I think people not being realistic with their timelines is usually a big reason why I've seen things fail. I mean, usually we get things out the door, but
I would say inconsistency, ineffective marketing, and maybe even a lack of communication among teams internally.
The worst ones you can have is where the wrong product has been launched, which is like it didn't have any of the features or requirements or anything that the customer really needs, and basically it's like you're throwing a product there that was doomed to fail from the beginning because you spec'd out you built the wrong product. So that to me is the worst possible expectation, where you launch a product that nobody wanted.
Again, going back to my first point, you may just miss actually the point. You might think that you know your users, that you know what their problem are, that you know like what you're trying to do, and just getting lost in, oh, I have a solution, I have an idea in mind, a feature, let me put it out there, I'm sure they will love it, when actually maybe your customer don't need it. So I think just having an idea and not testing it, no matter like big or small or anything, like there is always feedback, there's always iteration that you can do before going to market with it. So I think that will be the first problem.
All right, so Karthik, I think lots of interesting points made in the video. I don't know if you had the same sort of empathetic reaction to these product leaders that I did, having been through these kind of processes. But what were your takeaways from the video?
Yeah, it's so great to see the exact kind of problems like we are going after being mentioned in that video. It's great to see that the validation, but the problems are painful. So, for example, the first person talked about like how, when you launch a product, like salespeople sometimes don't know what's going on. Customer support has no idea how to support this new feature, and then so you have not really messaged all the key stakeholders, and you just done a launch. And then, typically like your engineering team or product team is like, your launch is just when it gets deployed to production. And then you go party, right? But then it's actually the beginning of a launch process where so many things have to happen. And you can see that pain literally come across in that video. It's basically, it's also good to see people talk about, communication, internal communication between various teams. And also making sure you're launching something with the features which customers actually want. And also like, I think the last person talked about like just losing track of the problem and just trying to push your own solution or idea. But in general, I think there was like a lot of like key themes around basically communicating to the internal stakeholders and lack of communication and having a process around a launch, which is like the key as to like why product launches fail.
I have to say, when I was listening to that video, or when I was watching those contributors comment on why product launches fail sometimes, it felt like a lot of blaming. Like it felt like a lot of like, oh, well, support didn't come along with the process and the marketing team, and I don't know, like, is that a raw, like, did you see that at all? I guess I can't I can empathize with what they're saying, but since I've never run a product before, maybe I might have a different perspective.
Yeah, I think this is like way too common. When they talk about this is something which I actually can relate to closely, even at Craft or at Facebook, and all the times. For example, one thing I keep hearing in the marketing teams is like, "Hey, the engineering team doesn't really update me on when things are going to ship," and we have this huge PR campaign which is planned for next week, and then just a week before, the engineering team is saying that, "Hey, sorry, the launch is delayed for 2 weeks." And then marketing team is like, "Hey, why didn't you tell me before?" And the engineering team is like, "Hey, it's not a big deal. I mean, it's just a week." But this is don't understand like how much of the work which goes on in actually setting up this messaging and the processes and reaching out to the public relations firm. So I think just being able to empathize and understand like how intensive this whole go-to-market process is across the company will be a good start. And that's basically one of the pain points which kind of came across. But also just to like talk about in just my own opinion on product launches in general and some of the mistakes which people make is like basically like sending an email is not a launch. Like a lot of the places you just launch, you deploy your latest feature or release to production, and then you send out an email and then say, hey, the launch is done. But that's not a launch. You need to have a process. You need to have a process where you need to figure out, like, you need to have a tiered process. For example, when you're launching a major project, it's a tier one launch. If it's a minor feature, it's a tier three launch. So a tier three launch could just be an email, maybe you update a blog, you update some FAQ. But for a tier one launch, you're going through the entire launch process where you're thinking about everything from who you're targeting, what's your persona, what's the messaging, how do you plan to position this in the market so that people actually understand the value prop. Like, why should I use it? Okay, great, you launch this new feature, but why does it add value? And then what channel should I use? If you're just sending an email open rates are pretty low. So you really need like a multi-channel approach to introduce products to people. And then, so all of these actually takes time. And the other mistake I keep seeing is like people, they don't understand the objective. Let's say you are creating a new product, and let's say you're creating a new category of products. If you invest in SEO, it's not going to help because nobody's searching for your product. It's a new category. So you need to invest in like content marketing versus if you're launching in a very competitive space, then the best way to do it is just go after your competitors' customers and then maybe offer them huge discounts. So really trying to understand like how do you actually bring this product or even a feature to the market, and having a process around it and communicating this to all the stakeholders internally is so key. And a lot of companies don't do it well, and that's why product launches fail.
I think that's exactly right, Karthik. I'd also say my experience is that one of the hardest parts about being a product manager at any kind of scale is, you're responsible for everything but in charge of nothing. So if the support team, if 99% of their current tickets are the current product and you're launching a new product and they don't want to spend any time getting up to speed on the new product because it's not most of their tickets, there's not a lot you can do about it other than trying to drive that alignment. And you talked a lot about like before you launch, or part of the launch, how do you have all that alignment? A part of it is it's just buy-in and understanding and focus. And I definitely think that sort of came through in the videos, where people are just sort of like, this team wasn't on board or this team didn't get weird, and it's really hard. It's sort of an innovator's dilemma with a new product launch in a lot of roles where they're mostly dealing with the existing product or the existing set of features. So I think that's right.